Okay, this is People of the State of Michigan versus Tyler Stokes. Docket numbers 21-311FH and 21-313FH. This is the time set for a plea in this case. Which docket or is he pleading to both dockets? Can someone tell me, or just one? Both.
Yes, Your Honor. He'll be entering a plea to one count in each file.
Okay, and which count would that be?
In Ms. Allen, correct me if I'm wrong here, but in 21-311FH, he'll just be pleading to count one, the only count on the complaint. And then in 21-313, he'll be entering a plea to count 2 with dismissal of counts 1 and 3 at sentencing.
Okay, and then Mr. Stokes, would you raise your right hand, please? Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Mr. Stokes, you have the right to be represented by an attorney. You are represented by Mr. Palmer, and as Mr. Palmer has told me, you're pleading guilty to the only count in docket number 311 and count 2 in docket 313. And Mr. Palmer, you will waive the balance of the reading of the balance of the information. Is that correct?
That is correct, Your Honor. I should also just state very quickly for the record, if I may, that technically I represent Mr. Stokes on 311FH. Mr. Jackson, Brian Jackson of my office, represents him on 313FH. I think for everyone's involvement, it makes a lot more sense for me to just continue to represent Mr. Stokes from here on out. I'm certainly the only one appearing today to do the plea, and I will probably be the only one appearing to do the sentence on both files as well.
Sure, I just noticed that myself. So, Mr. Stokes, you're okay if Mr. Palmer represents you on both these, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, then Ms. Allen, would you read count 1 in 311 and count 2 in 313?
In the People of the State of Michigan versus Tyler Stokes, file 21-311-FH, State of Michigan, County of Ingham. In the name of the people of the State of Michigan, the prosecuting attorney for this county appears before the court and informs the court that on or about November 21st, 2020, at 500 East Edgewood Boulevard, City of Lansing, Ingham County, the defendant did in count 1 commit the offense of retail fraud in the first degree, that he did, while Target was open to the public, steal property of the store that was offered for sale at a price of $1,000 or more, contrary to Michigan law. This is a felony punishable by up to 5 years and or $10,000, or 3 times the value or difference in price of the property stolen, obtained, or attempted to be obtained, whichever is greater. To impose that fine of 3 times the value, the defendant must admit the amount, or it must be found determined by the trier of fact at trial, and was committed against the peace and dignity of the State of Michigan. And in the People of the State of Michigan versus Tyler Stokes, file 21-313-FH, State of Michigan, County of Ingham. In the name of the people of the State of Michigan, the prosecuting attorney for this county appears before the court and informs the court that on or about October 29th, 2020, at 2055 West Grand River Avenue, Meridian Township, Ingham County, the defendant did in count 2 commit the offense of carrying a concealed weapon, that he did carry a dangerous weapon, to wit, a .45 caliber pistol, whether concealed or otherwise in a vehicle operated or occupied by said defendant, to wit, a U-Haul/Chevrolet truck, contrary to Michigan law. This is a felony punishable by up to 5 years or $2,500, mandatory forfeiture of weapon or device, and was committed against the peace and dignity of the State of Michigan.
Mr. Stokes, you're being charged here in the first file with first-degree retail fraud. That is a felony punishable by up to 5 years in prison. And then the second file is having a pistol in an automobile, also a felony punishable by up to 5 years in prison. Also, if you were on parole at the time of either one of these offenses, there'd be a mandatory consecutive sentence. Have you had enough time to talk about these charges with your attorney?
Yes, ma'am.
And do you understand the charges against you?
Yes.
Do you have any questions about what we're doing?
No, Your Honor.
And how do you want to plead?
I plead guilty.
Mr. Stokes, if your plea of guilty is accepted by this court, it means you won't have a trial of any kind, and you'll be giving up the rights that go along with a trial. That means you'll give up the right to a trial by jury, or if you didn't want trial by jury, trial by judge. You'll give up your right to be presumed innocent until proven guilty and to require the prosecutor to prove your guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. You'll give up your right to have the witnesses against you appear at the trial and to be able to cross-examine them, as well as the right to have this court order any witnesses that you might have to appear at the trial. Also, you'll give up your right to remain silent at the trial and not to have your silence used against you, or in the alternative, your right to testify at the trial if you wanted to. Also, there's some things that are different about appeals when you plead guilty. The first one is that you don't get an automatic right to have the higher court look at your case. Instead, you'd have to ask them to look at it. They would have to agree. And then the other thing that's different is that when you plead guilty, there are many issues you simply cannot appeal, which is different than people who go to trial. If they get convicted, they can appeal pretty much everything. Do you understand all of your rights and all of that, Mr. Stokes?
Yes, ma'am.
Also, if I accept your plea, it means you can't come back later on and try to say that the plea was the result of some promise or threat that no one told me about today. Do you understand that?
Yes, ma'am.
So you cannot come back later on and try to say that it really wasn't your own choice to plead guilty today. Do you understand that?
Yes, ma'am.
Is there a plea agreement, Ms. Allen?
There is, Your Honor. In file 21-311-FH, the defendant is pleading guilty to count 1, which is the charge. In file 21-313-FH, in exchange for the defendant's successful plea and sentence to count 2, the people will move at sentencing to dismiss count 1 and count 3. There's also a sentence agreement pursuant to People v. Killebrew that the defendant's upfront jail will not exceed 6 months in the Ingham County Jail or Shiawassee County Jail if they run concurrent and he's still there. We also don't have an objection to him receiving an inpatient treatment in lieu of a jail sentence, should that come up in the recommendation from the PSIR. Thank you.
Obviously, the Killebrew applies to both files, right?
Yes, Your Honor, thank you.
Is that a full and complete statement, Mr. Palmer?
That is a full and complete statement, Your Honor. I should note for the court, Mr. Stokes is scheduled to be transferred from Shiawassee County Jail, where he is currently, to the Saginaw County Jail. That change is supposed to occur, I believe, on the 24th, which would be this Thursday. So that by the time he gets to sentencing, he'll be at a different jail, but still in custody. And for what it's worth, Judge, in case the court wants to make note of this, as I calculate it right now, he's got on 311, he's got, I think, 87 days credit. And on 313, he should have, I think it's 61 days credit, if my math is correct. But it's roughly 2 months and 3 months of the 6 months.
Okay, thank you. So going back to the agreement, Mr. Stokes, the agreement about the charges that are being dismissed and the sentence no more than 6 months, is that all your understanding of the agreement as well?
Yes, ma'am.
And do you agree with it?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, if for some reason I decided not to go along with the sentence agreement of no more than 6 months, I would let you know before I sentenced you, and I'd give you a chance if you wanted to take back your plea and start all over. You got all that?
Okay.
Okay. Has anyone promised you anything else that has not been said here right now in order to get you to plead guilty?
No, ma'am.
Has anyone used any threats?
No.
Is it your own choice to do this?
Yes, ma'am.
And are you doing it because you believe you are in fact guilty of these offenses?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, let's start with the retail fraud then. And this was at Target on or about November 21 of last year. Tell me what you did.
I went shopping with my soon-to-be ex-wife, and I left the store before the property was paid for, and she was still in the store. And they came out, and I was apprehended and charged.
Were you going to steal the property?
Yes.
And you had it with you, is that right?
Yes.
Okay, and you went past the cash register and everything?
Yes, ma'am.
Was that property offered for sale at the store?
Yes, Your Honor.
And was the store open to the public at the time?
Yep. Yes.
And was the property that you were attempting to steal valued or offered for sale at over $1,000?
Yes.
Okay, and this was the one in the south side of Lansing on Edgewood in Lansing, Ingham County, is that right?
Yes, I believe so.
I think if I said that right. In any event, it's on Edgewood in Lansing, Ingham County. Okay, let's turn to the other file, and this is the one involving a pistol on or about October 29th of last year. Tell me about that.
I was traveling in a U-Haul I had rented, and I had my pistol that was registered to me in the truck with me. I was not licensed to carry it, but I did have it concealed.
All right, and you knew that it was in the truck
Yes.
because you had placed it there?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, and then you must have been stopped somewhere on West Grand River in Meridian Township, Ingham County, is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, has the court complied with MCR 6.302? Ms. Allen?
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes, Your Honor.
Are you aware of any promises, threats, or inducements other than those already placed on the record? Ms. Allen?
No, Your Honor.
Mr. Palmer?
No, Your Honor.
The court finds the plea is understandingly and voluntarily made without undue influence, threats, or promises of leniency. It is an accurate plea. It's supported by the testimony. The plea is accepted, and I've got a sentencing date of Monday, August 16th at 3:30. If that works for you, Mr. Palmer.
I'm looking right now, Judge.
Mm-hmm.
August 16th at 3:30 would work just fine, Judge. Thank you.
Okay, and then Mr. Stokes, okay with you if we do this remotely for sentencing as well?
Yes, ma'am.
We'll figure out where you're at, but we'll do that remotely then on August 16th at 3:30. So, Mr. Stokes, someone is going to set up an interview with you, someone from the Department of Corrections, Probation Department, and they'll be doing that so they can prepare the report that I'll use for sentencing, so just so you know that that will be happening.
Okay.
And do you have, Mr. Palmer, do you want me to revoke his bond?
Well, his bond should already be, he never posted bond as far as I'm concerned, as far as I'm aware. Is that right?
Oh, yeah. Okay. It's always hard to figure out when they're in custody on something else. So, okay, yeah, I just wanted to make sure he gets the credit that he should get.
Yeah,
Okay,
I'm sorry, Judge, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I double checked that at least on my file on 311 FH, when we waived with Judge Buchanan, I double checked that, and I believe he still had a 10% bond posted. It's my understanding that the same is true for 313 FH, so I believe he's earning credit on both.
Okay, very good then. So we're all set. Mr. Stokes, do you have any questions before we go?
No, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Then you're all set. You can tell them they're at the jail. You're all done.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Judge.
You're welcome.